Hey up everybody and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having a wonderful Sunday day or night wherever you might be in the world. It's currently Sunday night here in England, so I've just got back from the club and I'm going to be doing a video for you all today. So the topic of today's video is going to be the top 5 biggest finals chokes in NRL history. So that's going from 1998 to 2020 or 2019. So I'm going to be going from who I think was the 5th biggest choke up to the 1st biggest choke in finals history since the NRL era. Just before I start the list, I'd just like to say thanks very much to Nick from Australia for giving me a shout out. It was very nice of you to do that. I don't live in London. I live about 5 hours north of London, about an hour north of Leeds, and about 45 minutes south of Newcastle. So I live in a town in the northeast of England. But yeah, that's where I live. I'm not from London for everybody watching. So anyway, without further ado, I'm just going to get in the list right now, and we'll start with number 5. And number 5, I've got Canterbury Bankstown versus Brisbane in 2006, the preliminary final. Now, I remember that whole year. It was Melbourne and Canterbury. They were the top 2 teams. They were the 2 best 2 teams of that year. And Melbourne had already made the grand final the night before, so it was either between Canterbury Bankstown and Brisbane to make the preliminary final. It was played at the Sydney Football Stadium. And at half time, Canterbury went into the break with a 20-6 half time lead. They looked well on top of the match, they looked good. It looked like it was going to be a Melbourne v Canterbury grand final. And what happened in the next 40 minutes, I don't know what happened, but Brisbane ended up winning the match 37 points to 20. So they kept Canterbury scoreless in the second half, and they were just unplayable. They just played Canterbury off the park. I remember the try that led up to their comeback was, in my view, to this day, a forward pass from Justin Hodges to Sean Berrigan, but it's history now, you can't change it. Brisbane ended up winning the premiership that year, but I think if you look at Canterbury and Melbourne that year, they were the 2 best teams. I thought they should have made the grand final, but it wasn't to be. So that's my pick for number 5, and I'm sure most Canterbury fans would agree with me on that one. Number 4, South v Manly, 2013 preliminary final. So South had made their second preliminary final in a row. Manly had won the premiership in 2011 and were going for their second premiership in 3 years. They played at the Olympic Stadium. South had lost the preliminary final last year to Canterbury Bankstown, but this year they were a lot better as a team and as a unit. And they went 14-0 up after 20 minutes of play. And at the break they went up 14-6. In the second half, Manly ended up winning the match 30 points to 20. And South pretty much scored with the last play of the game, so they kept South scoreless for the entire second half of the match. Manly went on to lose the grand final the following week to Eastern Suburbs, but I think for all you South Sydney supporters out there, it would have been a massive choke, would have been a massive disappointment to be that far on top early in the match and not to go on with it. Of course, South went on to win the premiership the following year, 2014. First premiership in 43 years, but who knows what would have happened if they would have made that 2013 grand final. So that's me pick for number 4 for the biggest choke. The 3rd biggest choke, this is where we're getting into Parramatta territory, was Parramatta versus North Queensland 2005 preliminary final. The game was played at Telstra Stadium, or aka Olympic Park. I was at the game. Parramatta were minor premiers. North Queensland had lost the first week of the finals by nearly 50 points to West Tigers. We went into the game after having the week off. We were heavy favourites, and it was. I think it's one of the worst ever performances I've ever seen from a Parramatta team ever. We just didn't show up to play. Now it went right. One thing I remember quite clearly from the day was all year Tim Smith, he used to do a kick across the field to either Eric Growth or the other winger. On the second or third play, it used to catch the defence moving up. He used to kick over the top to the wing. Eric Growth either used to catch the ball and run away and score a try, or he'd catch the ball, run for a bit, draw in the fullback, and then pass it back on the inside. It just wasn't to be. That whole day, everything went wrong, and I remember, I think we were down about 12 now, 14 now. Tim Smith tried to do the same play to try to get us back in the game. He kicked the ball over to Eric Growth, and it went over his head in the touch, which gave North Queensland a set right in front of our post, which I think they scored off. And after that, I just went, it's just not our day. Losing that match and walking back to the train station was one of the most soul crushing things I've ever been through in my life. It was the quietest train ride I've ever experienced in my life ever. Never experienced out like it before or since. And it was just such a disappointment because we'd beaten West Tigers twice that year. I think we would have beaten them the following week if we would have made the grand final, but as history says, we didn't. So that's me number 3 pick. Second pick, Parramatta 2001 NRL grand final. As I've said in an earlier video, that 2001 year was one of the most dominant years you'll ever see from any club in the modern era. We only lost, I think, 4 games for the entire year. We broke all kinds of point scoring records, which still haven't been broken to this day. We thrashed Auckland in the first round of the finals by, I think, nearly 50 points. Then we beat Brisbane in the preliminary final to break that case. Made the grand final. I remember I was 14-year-old at the time, and I remember in the week leading up to the game, there was all this hype and people were saying it was the year of the eel and the year of Parramatta, and we're going to break our, at the time it was a 15-year drought, and going into half time it was 24-0 to Newcastle, and I was just sat there thinking, what the fuck just happened? This is fucking shite. We ended up coming back in the second half. We won the second half, but we lost the grand final 30 points to 24. It was only in the second half that we started playing. I think if the Rugby League was like a 90-minute, 100-minute game, we would have won the grand final that year, but unfortunately Rugby League's only played for 80 minutes and Newcastle won that grand final. I think one thing that summed up that whole game was towards the end of the first half, Steve Simpson pulled off this tackle that he probably never would ever be able to pull off again on Andrew Ryan, right on the line. And then right near the end of the first half, Luke Burt looked certain to crash over and at least give us a try to come into the second half. And he was bundled in the touch, and looking back on that match now, those two plays that just went, it was just Newcastle's day. There's nothing you can do about it. So that's me second biggest ever choke in the NRL era when it comes to the finals matches. And the biggest choke, I think, is Parramatta versus Canterbury. 1998 preliminary final. So going into the match, Canterbury needed to win three finals matches, all sudden death matches, to make it to the preliminary final. We beat Brisbane, who were the eventual premiers, in week 1 of the final. In week 2 of the finals, we beat them up at the old ground in Brisbane, the Athletics Centre. we beat them, I think it was 15-10, and we got the week off. So we went into the match and we led 18 points to 2 with 10 minutes to go to meet, and we would have made our first grand final since 1986. And I remember even the commentary team, Steve Roach, Ray Warren, Peter Sterling were all going, you know, Parramatta will go into the grand final next week against Brisbane as the underdogs, but they'll take faith from the fact that they beat them in the second week of the finals, and they'll have the home Sydney crowd against the Brisbane team. So going into the match, we're up 18-2, 10 minutes to go, and then Canterbury scored 3 tries in 8 minutes. One of our players, John Simon, he missed 2 sitters in front of the post for a field goal. Would have made it 19-12 or 19-8 or whatever. He was hooked off the field by Brian Smith, and back then the interchange was different, so he didn't come back on for the entire rest of the match. Then Darryl Halligan kicked a goal from the sideline to make it 18-all. And obviously, as everyone knows, Paul Carriage, he come up with about 3 or 4 errors. And we ended up losing the match 32 points to 20 in extra time. So Canterbury scored 30 points in less than 25 minutes. Quintessentially, that's how much they scored. And we were just shell-shocked. I remember I never understood why my parents hated a sports team. I remember growing up, they always used to say, we hate Canterbury, we hate Manly and all that. And I never understood what hate meant until that game, and ever since then I've hated Canterbury. And yeah, it's a game that I've never gotten over, but I think it's the biggest NRL finals choke ever from 1998 to 2019. I don't think you will ever see a finals game like that again, where a team's so far in front and yet they lose the match, especially with that time left on the clock. There was about 10 minutes to go, and for Canterbury to do that and to win, you'll just never see it again. Now, just before I go, I got some honourable mentions, because there's been a couple of chokes, but these ones I'm going to just wedge in here as well. Like, so I've got 999 St George v Cronulla in the preliminary final. Now, Cronulla were minor premiers that year, and I'm a believer. I think that 999 Cronulla team was better than the team that won the premiership in 2016. They were dominant in 1999. They smashed Brisbane in the first week of the finals, got the week off. They come and played St George in the preliminary final, and at half time they were up 8-0. 8-0 at half time they were. They looked a bit nervous, but they looked comfortable. Second half, St George scored 24 unanswered points and made the grand final against Melbourne, and Cronulla shell-shocked. One thing that always stands out for me is when Anthony Mundine broke through the line and he run to the corner, and then he did the somersault and then did the dance. That's one thing that will always stick out in my mind from that game. But I think for you Cronulla fans out there, you probably have to agree with me that that's probably your biggest ever choke in the finals game, especially in the NRL era. Massive choke, very disappointing to end the season on that note. And I thought I'd bring in another one, and once again it's Parramatta. There's just something about Parramatta and choking in the finals in there. But anyway, this one's from 1999. So you think after 1998, you'd think, gee, maybe if you were a player and you're still in the squad, you'd be thinking, gee, maybe we could learn from that 1998 preliminary final. Maybe we could go into the 1999 season and not make the same mistakes again. Let's play for that whole 80 minutes. So anyway, preliminary final 1999 comes about. We finished second that year, and our opponents were Melbourne. Now, back in those days, Melbourne were not the same club they were now. They were a ragtag of the remnants of Western Reds, Adelaide, Hunter Mariners, and a couple of other players. And they made the finals that year, but they weren't amongst the favourites. I remember that year it was us and Cronulla. We were the two teams tipped to meet the grand final. So, anyways, it was 16-0 at half time to us. We dominated the first half. Now, you'd think with Brian Smith being the coach and some of the players being there from the year before, they would have learned. They would have said, okay, we've been in this situation before. We've been so far ahead. We're dominating. Let's keep our head and win that second half. Well, once again, for some unknown reason, Parramatta choked. We ended up losing the match 18-16. As you all know, Melbourne went on to win the grand final the following week. That particular game, that the 1999 Premier League final sticks out in my mind because it was on my birthday. It was on my fucking birthday. So I remember that game very, very vividly. It was so crushing. It was very disappointing. I'm sure all you Parramatta fans and other people that don't like Melbourne or wanted Parramatta to win that day would agree with me. But yeah, there's just something about Parramatta and choking in those big moments in those big finals. So that's my top 5, plus a couple of extras thrown in for the biggest ever chokes in the NRL era for the finals. I hope you all liked the video, and if you did, then please like and subscribe. Once again, I'd like to thank Nick from Australia for giving me that shout out. I hope that you're all having a wonderful evening from wherever you are. Also, make sure that you click that notification bell so when I release a new video, you get an email. Because sometimes I think with YouTube, when people release new videos, you don't get that notification. So make sure that you click that bell. And I'll catch us all later. And take it easy and ta-ra.